Welcome to the Daily Thunder podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Rabar, beat writer for dailythunder.com. Every week or so, we will have guests ranging from national sports writers and local reporters to OKC celebrities and Thunder staff and players. This week, our featured guest is Andrew Unterberger, who is big time in the music biz as deputy editor of Billboard magazine, yes, the Billboard. But he's also well known in NBA circles for being a Trust the Process thought leader, a quizmaster extraordinaire, and one of the blogosphere's most creative writers, blogging through the entire pretend Sixers season during the COVID hiatus. Also this week, we're going to dip into the Daily Thunder mailbag and answer your questions. Okay, so normally right here is where I would exchange some pleasantries with Andrew, our guest, and we'd talk back and forth for a moment. And that actually happened, but I'm going to be really transparent with you and tell you that I forgot to hit record on this interview until about 5 minutes in. And the intro was great. We talked about music and like the best of 2020. He shared with me his favorite music. He asked me what my favorite music of 2020 was. I told him that I thought the 2020 music sucked. And so I listened to a bunch of like Sam Cooke and Old Soul during 2020. It was a good laugh and you missed it all. But let's just pretend that I just asked Andrew this question. Andrew, what would you say are the similarities and the differences between the Thunder rebuild and the 76ers Trust the Process rebuild?
A couple differences. One is that you guys are starting from a much greater position of strength than we did, just in terms of you had two Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer caliber players, perennial All-Stars to kind of get the rebuild started with. We had one guy that kind of fluked into one All-Star game appearance once in Drew Holiday, and that was kind of in a down year. And we were able to get a lot for him, but not the kind of Paul George type package that you guys got, or even what you got for Russell Westbrook. And obviously there were some extenuating circumstances there, but the fact that you had those two players to kind of jumpstart the rebuild with is pretty extraordinary. And you also have a much better kind of central prospect right from the jump than we did. We had Michael Carter-Williams in that first year, and he was the rookie of the year. But I don't think anybody really ever looked at him as like a true building block for a future kind of contender. Not like the kind of guy that you'd put all your stock in to sort of anchor the team 5 years down the road. Although we talked ourselves into it because we can talk ourselves into anything as Sixers fans. But in terms of what you guys have with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like that we would have sold our soul for a player of that caliber the first couple of years. And we had one in Joel Embiid, but he didn't show up the first 2 years. Obviously, he had those back-to-back foot surgeries. And you guys also have your picks staggered much further down the line than we did. I mean, we had second rounders, and we're still kind of catching in those second rounders that we got in the Sam Hinkie era. But I think in terms of first rounders, we mostly only had two or three years out. And I was on the Real GM's Future Drafts Detailed page, which if you're not already intimately familiar with, I'm sure you will be in the next couple of years. Just kind of looking at the entire ledger of future draft assets for you guys. And I was looking through the first couple of years. I was like, oh, well, this is impressive, but not as impressive as I remembered it. And then just kept going. And then just going 2024, 2025, 2026. We didn't quite have that arsenal in terms of like, okay, even like 5 or 6 years down the line, we're still going to be in pretty heavy draft capital. But aside from that, it seems like a pretty similar sort of process. It seems like a lot of the thought behind it is the same. But you guys are managing to do it while staying competitive. And in some ways, that'll actually make it harder for you because you won't be drafting in the top 3 every year the way we were for 3 or 4 years straight. I mean, that was great, especially because, we didn't hit on all of them. We had a Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, Michael Carter-Williams sort of didn't pan out the way we hoped, but we had 4 cracks at it. And so we got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid out of it, and that was good enough. You guys are, I guess, going to have to kind of do it from the middle, and also just hoping that some of the teams that you got capital from way down the line, they sort of fall apart in the next 3 to 4 years. It could happen, and you certainly have enough bites of the apple that one of them will probably come through. But it's just going to be a little bit of a different route to get there, I think.
Yeah, and we're already seeing a little bit of it with the Rockets maybe trading James Harden. Who knows? Sure. They already traded Russell Westbrook and Robert Covington, so who knows what's going to happen with those? And I think that's why Presti did it so far down the line. Obviously, Paul George re-signed long term with the Clippers, but he'll be older when those start to kick in, and who knows what's going to happen with Kawhi? I think a lot of it rests on what happens this season as far as what happens with those Clippers picks. But I think that you bring up a great point as far as getting a lot of cracks at it, because I think everybody just automatically assumes, if you get a top 3 to 5 pick, you're going to get a star. Well, OKC fans have been a little bit spoiled because Sam Presti hit on all his when he had him
Certainly did.
between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and then even in the 20s with Serge Ibaka. I mean, he was just living kind of a blessed life. But even Presti, with all his powers, isn't going to be 100%. So I think it is important to get a lot of cracks at the Apple. So you guys had this trust the process catchphrase, and I think it really kind of built up an excitement within the fan base. And so they got on board. And I know Joel Embiid, he was tweeting it out a lot. And so how long did it take? Because I'm curious, because Thunder fans have experienced so much success in such little time and sustained success. They were either contending or, at worst, they were a 5 seed with the potential to go to the second round or the Western Conference Finals. This will be a different kind of deal with the Thunder if they do bottom out. You talked about competing, but, they traded away Chris Paul and Gallinari and Steven Adams and Schroeder. So we'll see this year where they land. How long did it take the fans to get on board with trusting the process and the whole rebuilding thing? And was there any sort of pushback? Like, no, we want to compete. We want to contend. Stop bottoming out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of as Sixers Twitter versus actual season ticket holders. Season ticket holders, a lot of them never got on board with the process. I mean, because they actually have to go to the games. They're actually paying money for seats, and they actually want to see a product that isn't, of 19 and 63 on a good season. In terms of the sort of blogosphere and the sort of the Sixers Twitter reaction to it, I think most of us were on board pretty quickly, just because, like you were saying, OKC has this incredible sustained run of success, and even a bad year still pretty good. Sixers hadn't had that for a long time, not since the peak Iverson years, which didn't even really last as long as they should have. But we were 7 seeds a lot of the time, a lot of 41 and 41 type seasons. You kind of talk yourself into maybe a first round upset being meaningful. But the best memory that the Sixers franchise had in the decade before the process was beating the Bulls as an 8 seed when the Bulls were the 1 seed, obviously. And that was because the Bulls' 2 best players got hurt over the course of the series. And we took the Celtics to 7 games after that, but it was a weird series that nobody really took seriously. And there was really no way to talk ourselves into that team being capable of more than they had already shown us, which wasn't that much. So it was the treadmill of mediocrity. Most of us wanted to get off. Most of us were okay with it when it seemed like there was a guy in charge who had a plan for the future and who was willing to kind of go to the bottom in order to get to the top, both of which were novel for us at that point in time. So those of us who kind of took that long view, we were on board pretty quickly. And some people kind of got on because the culture of it became so fun. Part of the Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast that I now write for, but I wasn't at the time. They kind of built a community out of the losing and out of the tanking years in the process, and we were able to kind of celebrate that and make it fun. And now that the team's good again, they're Sixers fans that actually kind of long for those days of losing and it being simple and it being fun and there being no expectation and kind of no weight on the team's shoulders. But yeah, in terms of, there was always a schism in the fan base in terms of the folks that got on board and the folks that never really understood what Sam Hinkie was doing, thought it was a pyramid scheme, whatever. Is that kind of emerging with OKC already? Like, do you find that there are kind of like-minded folks that are cottoning to it immediately, and then there are other folks that are like, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny. If you look on Twitter, I don't know what why there's such a difference between NBA Twitter and say NBA Facebook, because I look at Thunder Twitter and it's a lot of, rebuilding and let's get the draft pick. We need to bottom out. We need to be as bad as possible. Then I look at Facebook and they're like, why are they trading Dennis Schroeder? Why are they trading Chris Paul? And there's just this, like you said, there's a seismic shift between the two, and I'm not sure why there's such a difference, but I've noticed it. So I think that there are two sides of probably every fan base. Part of it that, no, let's compete, let's be good right now, and if we are going to trade away a Chris Paul, let's keep Kelly Oubre and keep Ricky Rubio and try to keep competing, because the Thunder could have. I mean, if they would have kept all the pieces, they could have got assets back and then still chose to compete with Rubio, Oubre, Shea, Dort, Baisley, keep Steven Adams. They could have been a team that competed for the 7 or 8 seed quite easily and get assets. But I don't think that's the vision that Presti has. I think that he wants to contend, so he wants to bottom out. And I am really curious to see if the other half of the fan base that's not on board with it, if they get on board. I'm curious. I don't know what's going to happen there. Now, we talked a little bit about striking out and hitting on top 5 picks. Do you think it's inevitable that teams will miss out on picks? Do you think it's as easy as Sam Presti's good at picking and the Sixers management at the time pre-Morey wasn't as good at picking? Or do you think there's just an element of luck no matter how good or bad your GM is?
Well, I mean, certainly Sam Presti does have a pretty good track record there. And, he may have a higher track record. He may have a higher rate of success than most at his position. I don't think anybody bats 1,000 when it comes to the top of the draft, especially just because injuries are such a factor, culture, team fit is such a factor. Like there's a certain degree of science to it, but I don't think that anybody can claim to have it down to an absolute. And I don't think Sam Hinkie would have ever pretended that he would have had it down to an absolute, even in a best case scenario. And you'll be lucky if there's no sort of external forces that are kind of pressuring certain decisions. Like the most controversial decision in the process history still remains the taking of Jahlil Okafor at number 3 that year, 2015, I think. Sixers fans were not high on him. He was a center. He played the same position as Nerlens Noel and Joel Embiid, who both still on the roster at the time. His comparables out of Duke were strong, but not necessarily trending in the way you want for the modern NBA. We took him at number 3. Everyone kind of looked at each other and was like, okay, is that it? Like, there's no big trade coming. There's no second, there's no other shoe to drop there. And we were still kind of wondering about that. And I think a lot of people sort of theorized, and other people kind of reported this out a little bit, that there might have been pressure from management, or that there might have been other sort of okay, well, we need a player who's going to contribute now. And he seemed at least the most NBA ready of the players at the time that were available kind of in that draft range. But maybe not. Maybe it just was a swing and a miss. We'll never know for sure, probably. But the fact that Sam Hinkie, who was, we still kind of venerate as one of the smartest minds of the NBA, the modern NBA of the last decade, the fact that he could make such a move that appears, at least on its face, to be wrongheaded, sort of shows you that nobody's infallible at this stuff.
Now, looking ahead to next season, the Thunder, I think, do want to bottom out, get a top 5 pick. It's supposed to be a loaded draft. And I think Thunder fans are already looking ahead, studying, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, and all that thing. Were Sixers fans the same way? I mean, were you instead of being into the season, where a lot of people already looking ahead at the drafts, and are you it's October, November, and the season starting, but you're looking at the mock drafts for next season? Was that the same way with you guys?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us kind of became amateur NCAA experts at that point. I certainly include myself among that. I think the 2013-14 NCAA season was the only season I've ever really paid attention to, because the Sixers were inevitably going to have a top pick, and it was supposed to be one of the most loaded classes in history. So I was doing analysis and writing and film study and all that stuff, even though I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to prospect evaluation. But that was sort of the fun of it too, was that there were kind of 2 seasons going on at once, and that you were watching the Sixers on one level, but you were also sort of scouting the college market. You were kind of fetishizing these guys from overseas that we knew nothing about. Everyone fell in love with Dario Saric long before he was drafted by the Sixers. And especially because the Sixers had such a long way to go, we became obsessed with workout footage from guys who were coming back from injury, and Summer League was a huge deal. I still kind of cherish our Orlando Summer League title, and I think 2014, I think they should have raised the banner to it in the Wells Fargo Center. So you kind of find other things to be passionate about besides just the team. Although we were, at least speaking for me, I was still living and dying with every win and every loss. And there are games that we almost won during that stretch that we still talk about as if they were, Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You find your ways to kind of have fun with it, even when it seems like it's pretty meaningless on the surface in terms of the actual regular season.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the next thing I want to talk about before I let you go. I think it's going to be fascinating, because even me, myself, I'm a guy that wants to bottom out and get a top 3 pick. I want Cade Cunningham or one of those guys. But I find myself, even in a meaningless game, I can't help but root for these guys. I'm rooting for Shea. I want the buckets to drop. I want, them to make the shots. And of course, there's that development with all these young guys. You want to see the rookies and the second-year players develop and get good. But so there's this weird give and take, but it's better to be bad. So did you find yourself rooting for wins, or rooting for losses, or rooting for just competitive games that were close, but you ended up losing? Because you see, even in the NFL, it's not exactly the same because of lottery odds and stuff. But the Jets won a game yesterday that they shouldn't have won. They might miss out on Trevor Lawrence now. And a lot of Jets fans are mad, even though they beat the Rams, because they're not going to get a chance maybe at Lawrence. How do you think OKC fans will be? How are 76ers fans during that time?
Yeah, it's hard to straight up root for losses. I mean, some people were able to do it. I wasn't really. I still wanted them to win every game, even when and the Sixers got out that first tanking season, 2013-14. I don't know if you remember, the Sixers got out to a 3-0 start. They beat the Heat on opening night. They beat the Bulls a couple games later. And it was like, oh man, maybe this isn't even going to happen. Maybe the team's actually going to be good this year. And then, later that season, they lost 26 games in a row. Things got back on track. But you never stop wanting good. I mean, especially because you get attached to the players, you never really stop wanting good things for them. So maybe there are some kind of galaxy brain level fans out there that watch and just kind of get furious when it looks like they're actually going to win games. The good news is if you're rooting for a truly tanking team, they'll take care of business one way or the other in terms of the losses. So you can kind of root for the occasional fun win here or there. You can kind of root for at least like a lot of moral victories. Definitely get used to that. But in terms of actually like feeling that conflict of wanting them to lose, but also really wanting them to win, when you're watching the games, I think the side that wants to win is going to win out. And then the rest will kind of take care of itself, I think.
That makes complete sense. It's a win-win. If they win, great. They won. Sure. Exciting. If they lose, great. They lost. That's a win. Andrew, thank you for joining us on the Daily Thunder podcast. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. If you're into music, he's like the dude at Billboard.com. If you're into the NBA and basketball and the 76ers, he's the best at that as well. So follow him online. Andrew, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. It's a lot of fun.
Now it's time to open up the Daily Thunder mailbag, and I'm joined by our producer, Rachel Jameson. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing great, Brandon. How are you?
I'm good. Do you have some solid questions for us today?
I have so many good questions in this mailbag. Let's start with Josh Ferris's question. He wants to know if the Thunder are in the playoff mix come the beginning of March, will Presti still trade both Horford and Hill, or would he be content to run it through and give them some experience in the playoffs?
I think the reality is, as much fun as it was to get off to a 5-4 start, the Thunder still want a top 5 pick in the 2021 draft. I don't see any scenario in which Sam Presti would pass up trading George Hill or Al Horford or Trevor Ariza for any sort of positive assets. And so, I don't think that the Thunder will be in playoff contention in March because they're 5-6 now, and they're about to hit a really brutal stretch of games through the end of January, and even part of February is pretty rough. But just hypothetically, if they are still in the playoff mix, no, I still don't see that happening. I think that Presti will do whatever he can to ensure as high draft pick in the 2021 draft as possible, and not worry about, having a fun playoff run this season and playing the Lakers or Clippers in the first round and exiting the playoffs in the first round again. Last year was the fun bridge year of, hey, we're rebuilding, but this is a lot of fun. We're competitive. We're in the playoffs. We took the Rockets to 7 games. I don't see any way that repeats this year.
This year has been fun, though, so far, though. The fact that anybody's even asking what if we're in playoff contention is pretty incredible. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's been a lot of fun as well. It's exciting to see this team be so competitive. Yeah, they got blown out by the Lakers, and they've been blown out by the Heat and the Pelicans. But besides those 3 games, the other 8 games, they're either winning or losing in a really, really close, entertaining fashion. And to see these young guys develop, like Shea to take a leap, and Dort and Baisley, and then out of nowhere, Hamidou Diallo, and then Poku and Maladone, Roby even. There's so many young guys to get excited about, despite, not making the playoffs this season. It's a fun team to root for.
Speaking of these young guys, James Bollinger wants to know, how does Coach Daigneault keep the young players engaged after Presti trades the big-name veterans?
That's a great question, but from what we've seen so far, both from Coach Daigneault's, the way he motivates these guys, the way that he coaches these guys, and the way they respond to him, I don't think that's a big worry. And the bigger thing is, all these young guys are competitive. They're hungry. They say it over and over again. You see it on the court. They fight. They don't give up. They're usually out-talented on the court. They're usually playing superstars, but they don't back down, and they don't back down when they're down 10 or 20. They're going to keep fighting. So I don't think that'll be an issue. And that's the thing when you got young guys, they're all hungry and have something to prove, whether it's Dort, he was undrafted, chip on the shoulder. Baisley was drafted late, chip on the shoulder. Hamidou Diallo, second round pick. Everybody kind of wanted to get rid of him, chip on the shoulder. Shea repeatedly says he wants to be one of the greats over and over and over again. So even the guy that's your best young player, he's motivated despite, whether they trade away Horford or Hill or they're not competitive, because he wants to prove to be one of the greats. So I think all these guys are self-motivated.
KM is all in on Evan Mobley over Cade. He thinks we need more size. What do you think about that?
I still think that Cade Cunningham is the number one guy, and you get him no matter what, just because he's that talented, and you can figure out the fit later. And as much as we love Dort and Baisley and Hami and Poku and Maladone, you want elite talent to put next to Shea. That's the biggest concern. And Shea can play the 1 or the 2 or even the 3, and Cade can play the 1, 2, or 3. So just get the best guy and then figure out fit later. But that said, Evan Mobley is my second favorite draft prospect behind Cade Cunningham, and I would be ecstatic about Evan Mobley. This is a guy who would have gone number 1 overall in last year's draft. Really the top 5 guys in this next year's draft would have gone number 1 last year. Mobley is elite, and he is kind of the one piece that this young core doesn't have. He's a center. He's a true center, but he can shoot, space the floor. He's got post moves. He's a good shot blocker. He can do all the things that you want your modern big to do, and he can handle the ball and pass. To add a guy like that next to Shea really would be a great fit. And then you got all these other guys like Dorton, Baisley, and Poku that you can throw in with those two guys. So I want Cade the most, but I would be perfectly happy with Evan Mobley and then a Jalen Suggs and a Jalen Green and a Kuminga.
Final answer?
Final answer, I'll call him Jonathan K.
Well done.
Thank you.
I need some help on this next one. Barrett Bearlyle wants to know, do you think it's any less of a low road than when Russ teamed up with PG and Melo, or do we discount that because of how disappointing it was?
Okay, so I know what he's asking. He's asking, this season being a bad season, the Thunder aren't going to be very good. They're not going to make the playoffs. Is this as bad as the Russ, PG, Melo year when they did make the playoffs, but the expectations were so much higher? They were supposed to compete for a championship. Like, which is worse? I think definitely as much fun as the OK3 were, that season was worse because, they were expected to, at the very least, make it to the second round, maybe the Western Conference Finals, and they went out in the first round against a rookie Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They should have beat that team. This team's expectations are just in a different place. Yeah, they're not going to win a lot of games, but they're not supposed to. The end game is, do the young guys develop? And the young guys have definitely been developing and show a lot of promise. So to me, that's a win. And can they get a top 5 pick? And if they lose a lot, then they're going to get, a top pick, and you're adding a big time talent next to Shea. And that's kind of the goal of this season. So to me, this season is much, much more fun and not nearly as disappointing or heartbreaking as that OK3 season.
Our last question in the mailbag this week comes from Josh L. So Josh L thinks that the Rockets are going to try to make their pick a top 4 so they can keep it. So is he right in thinking they can only guarantee that by hitting rock bottom?
Yeah, so what he's talking about is the 2021 pick swap that the Thunder have with both the Rockets and the Heat. As long as the Rockets don't finish with the 1, 2, 3, or 4 overall pick, then the Thunder will get the 2 best picks out of the Thunder, Rockets, and Heat. So ideally, the Thunder end up with the top 3 pick, and then the Rockets end up with the number 5 pick, or 5, 6, 7, 8 pick. You want the Rockets to be bad, but not so bad that they hit rock bottom and get a top 4 pick. But here's the deal with the new lottery odds. Even if they are the worst team in the NBA and finish with the worst record, and they try to hit rock bottom, they actively try to keep that pick, they still only have a 52% chance of getting a 1 through 4 pick because the lottery odds were flattened and they changed. So that's helpful to the Thunder. So they may try to hit rock bottom, but there's only a 48% or there's only a 52% chance that works out for them. So I don't think that they necessarily even can when you have John Wall and Christian Wood and Eric Gordon and Boogie Cousins and maybe Victor Oladipo. If he sticks around for any sort of time before they trade him again, he's going to help them win games. So it may be that perfect sweet spot for the Thunder where the Rockets don't make the playoffs and they finish at like the number, let's say 7, 8, 9 worst record, but they don't hit rock bottom. So the Thunder get another top prospect in the 2021 draft.
Glad to hear the rules are actually playing well for the Thunder this time for a change.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, the Thunder have been messed over by new rules so many times. It is kind of not, and it's funny, it's ironic because I shouldn't say Sam Preston, because the Thunder were the one team to vote against flattening the odds. And I know why we did it. We're a small market. It hurts the small markets. It's the only way to build up elite talent is by guaranteeing, but doing what they're doing right now, tanking and trying to get a top pick. So I know why we voted against it. But in this one case, it could end up helping the Thunder.
Okay, that's it, Brandon.
All right. Hey, thanks for everybody for sending in your questions. And be sure to keep sending them in to at Daily Thunder or hit us up dailythunder@gmail.com. I think that's our email address.
I think you're right. We're wrong. Sorry, Craig.
This isn't email anymore.
What's that?
Send us a fleet or something if you've got a question. Thank you for listening and for supporting the Daily Thunder podcast. You can follow our guest, Andrew Unterberger, at AU Get Off My Gold. And you can follow me at Brandon Rabar as I cover the Thunder beat. If you subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Daily Thunder, you'll receive early access to Daily Thunder content, including bonus podcast segments, the exclusive weekend edition newsletter, and other perks like free shirts, special pricing at local businesses, and more. This podcast is produced by Rachel Jameson. You can follow her or not, your choice, at Rach Jameson. I wouldn't. You can. Send your questions and feedback to dailythunder@gmail.com and stay on dailythunder.com every day to catch the latest Thunder news, recaps, analysis, interviews, and nonsense.